Hello everyone, so welcome to another episode of My Favourite Gundams. Again, I go over these in no particular order, going off just memory from what I remember of specific mobile suits that I really take a fancy to in the Gundam universe. So today we're going to be going over the Gundam Deathscythe from Gundam Wing. I've got to preface this first by saying that I'm going to specifically be targeting episode 2 as a focal point from Gundam Wing as to my whole fascination with this mobile suit, primarily because episode 2 of Gundam Wing is one of the few that shows the Deathscythe off how it should be used, and then the rest are more stock footage and group activities, which it does not do well in. So, when Wing was originally airing on Toonami, when it was first airing back in like the 2000s or something, I remember they showed off multiple previews of Gundam Wing, and the reason why Deathscythe's design has stuck with me so much is because they showed off the previews for episode 2 on what felt like an almost hourly basis on Toonami. You'd constantly see the previews for it, and Deathscythe was everywhere at the time, so that really heavily impacted my sort of opinion and likes, sort of how I liked the mobile suit. Mainly because they showed off the underwater fights so much. And this is what gave me this fascination with this mobile suit. It's not so much the idea that it's edgy and looks like the Grim Reaper but in Gundam form, but it's more the idea of the role that it performs and how it performs in episode 2 that fascinates me. A bit like a kid that absolutely loves to find out more about things like stealth bombers when you first find out about them and you're like, oh cool, technology that can keep off the radar. The Deathscythe is best known as a fast, invisible, guerrilla fighting style mobile suit, and the reason why I say sort of guerrilla warfare style is because it goes behind enemy lines, it's completely invisible to radar, and it does the job and then just gets out of there before it's even seen. Kind of reminds me of like certain military special forces, or at least how they're meant to be. And as I've said on multiple streams, I'm always kind of fascinated with things to do with like military teams that are supposed to be like invisible killers, or have a record of going in, doing the job, and then getting out, and it being almost like a perfect job that they've done. So Deathscythe, when it comes down to it in episode 2, this is the perfect role for it. In episode 2 of Wing specifically, it appears when Hero's Wing Gundam is found at the bottom of the ocean, attacks the fleet and Zex's transport that is trying to recover Wing Gundam, and completely decimates all of the forces. And the cool thing about this mobile suit is the simple fact of how effective it is during that fight. That's what I like about it the most. You see all of these forces getting mobilized to try and recover this one mobile suit, and then slowly the carriers get picked off one by one. You can see these like huge beam cuts coming out of the ocean and like carving these carriers in half, and then we see Deathscythe jump out of the water and carve up one of the other ones while it's on top of the ship. That's the first shots we really get of it, and that sort of establishes this sort of intimidating force that can just carve up aircraft carriers with ease, like a knife through butter. We also get to see its one major projectile weapon that can't really be recovered easily, which is the Buster Shield, which is a giant shield that has almost like a beam saber emitter in the front of it that looks like a coffin, keeping with its aesthetic of looking like death, and that gets fired at a helicopter. We don't get to see that much throughout Wing, specifically in the later parts of it when Deathscythe becomes Deathscythe Hell Custom, but we don't get to see that used too much. Neither do we get to see it use its Vulcans on its head or its shoulders much, but we definitely get to see it in group shots later on using its scythe. Now the second part of where it's introduced is the coolest bit to me, and the bit that stood out the most, and that's when the Oz recovery team finds the mobile suit, well, finds Hero's mobile suit at the bottom of the ocean, and Duo goes back down to the ocean floor to make sure that they don't recover it. And this is where we get to see a couple of Cancer and Pisces trying to recover it. And all of a sudden, Duo comes in out of nowhere and carves them up one by one, and we get to hear lines thrown around such as like, how can he use this beam weapon underwater? And that's another one of the things that fascinated me with this design or this suit, is just the fact that the scythe emitter is so powerful that in universe it can emit beams at the bottom of the ocean. Given how much pressure there is down there, you'd think that the emitter might malfunction or snap, but no, this thing is built out of Gundanium, and it just stays on and carves up everything else. Sure enough, we get one point where one of the Cancers grabs it and shoots it in the head a bunch of times with some torpedoes, but kind of like where Hero gets hit a couple of times with bazookas in episode 1, it's almost like a fake out to try and get the enemy to drop the guard, while the Gundam takes advantage of the fact that they seem to have defeated it and completely gets annihilated. But yeah, episode 2 shows Deathscythe, the TV version, at its best. I don't really like the Kotoki version, mainly because with Deathscythe Hell custom from like Endless Waltz with its design, we get to see it goes almost like Batman. It takes on that sort of approach of being really edgy, and I feel like it kind of overdoes it. You can almost get away with that edginess when it gets made into Deathscythe Hell Custom, the TV version. The difference is that between them is that the Endless Waltz version goes with the more sort of bat aesthetic, whereas the TV version, sure, it looks a little bit like a bat, but those aspects are a little bit more integrated into the design. The idea is that those wings are meant to be used as shields to deflect large beams, and the dual beam scythe, even though it's pretty cool, that gets lost in the Endless Waltz again. So even though the upgrade is really cool, and even though the custom goes a little bit too edgy for me, I still like the original TV version. It's nice, it's slender, it keeps the design simple, and shown in at least episode 2, it does what it's meant to do, as described really well. You know, it's a stealth suit, you're not meant to see it coming, but I feel like it gets lost amongst the stock footage that we see a lot of later on, where you'll see like Wing Gundam and maybe Heavy Arms a lot of the time, with maybe Sandrock thrown in there in battle sequences, and then you might find one shot of Deathscythe carving up people. Of course, it's not good versus the mobile dolls later on, and it does get destroyed. That's where I feel like it's out of its element in space, and it gets let down by the fact that it doesn't have many projectile weapons, and that it's being engaged with it being known that it's actually there. You know, Duo's kind of ran out of ideas and ends up sort of going headfirst into battle and losing. So that goes over just how much of an advantage it has when it's doing sneak attacks as compared to just head-on attacks. I do like the way that this thing, even though it's mainly melee, or is like 99.9% melee, can just carve up anything with its beam weapons. And its jammer, like a stealth bomber, like I said before, can just cancel out anything on radar, so you never know what's coming. I feel like some of the scenes where we had with Wu Fei carving up bases could have been given to Duo, because Duo got given a lot of downtime, mainly because his character seemed to be the more calm and relaxed and normal personality out of all the wing pilots. It's kind of weird to say that, considering how all the wing pilots are, but out of all of them, Duo was the most normal out of them to be able to relate to in terms of how likable he is and everything. But yeah, Deathscythe's a pretty cool suit. I'm sad that the TV version doesn't get more love in the form of kits and stuff. Hopefully we'll eventually get the high grade of it in future. At the point of recording this, I'm still waiting on the high grade. We've had little bits of like teasers here and there we're slowly getting the HG line of wingsuits. We've currently got the Wing Gundam and the Sandrock that have been released, and the Leo, and we've had the real grade Wing and the Tall Geese, and I'm still waiting on Deathscythe. That's definitely one for me to buy, just because of the nostalgia, and also because of how much it was shown in the previews. But yeah, I really like it. I like the fact that the colour scheme as well, just to round this entire video out, as well as being a simple design, I like the fact that the colour scheme isn't exactly black. It's like this dark navy blue that has like little bits of black in it here and there, and then that's accented by white and yellow all over the suit, making certain parts pop, and then the rest of it being pretty uniform in colour. There's just the parts that you want to focus on, like the upper torso and everything, and the arms, specifically the parts that hold the scythe. Those are the bits that are highlighted the most. That's pretty cool to me, because it shows off the design really well and makes you focus on the parts that are important. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Bye!